I may only be a quiet, quaint Canadian with just a wee bit of Scottish blood in me, but I actually want to know what the Scots think about Scots in movies. Also, as a Canadian, I'd like to personally apologize to Scotland for James Doohan. Maybe you liked him, I don't know. But that's kind of exactly my point. I don't know what to think as an outside perspective, because personally, I see a lot of Scottish movie characters as miserable or stereotypes or miserable stereotypes. And even when they get a great film, something comes along and taints it. So finally, here comes another take on one of their great folk heroes, and it is directed by David Mackenzie, a native Scot. What could go wrong? Oh, give us a break. But let me throw a little surprise nugget your way right away and let you know that this may actually be the best Netflix film. It's really up to you how much that means, because with stinkers like Bright or Hold the Dark in the distant forgettable past, I can forgive anybody who says they don't really trust Netflix. But then again, with Annihilation or Roma, Netflix has also shown that they can produce films that have some critical success. Some of the, albeit limited, success that they've had is because Netflix is not afraid to bring on high-caliber filmmakers like Alex Garland, Alfonso Cuarón, or in this case, David Mackenzie, who in 2016 directed one of my favorite Oscar-nominated sleeper hits, Hell or High Water. A hit so sleepy, it was nominated for Best Picture and still nobody really went to go see it. Hell or High Water was sleepy only in some respects, because it was really a fantastically fun, lively, character-driven piece with some amazing dramatic performances from its cast. So the question is now, is this what we're going to get from Outlaw King? Only some of those aspects, which of course is disappointing, because on the surface this appeared to be a film that David Mackenzie really wanted to make. And why do I say that? Well, because it's already been made before, and he had to have known that this film, this story, is always, perpetually going to be compared to Braveheart. I get it. This is Robert the Bruce's story, not William Wallace. But if somebody remade Titanic from the perspective of the captain, would it be all that different? You still know the ship's gonna sink. While some of these elements are obviously familiar in both films because it's the same story, you also get some really kind of funny coincidences. Of course, there's a tyrannical king, which we expect. There's a folk legend fighting for independence, which we also expect, but James Cosmo is in both films. Both films feature a red-headed sidekick, which I guess is quite commonplace in Scotland. Both films feature a crazy, insane lieutenant of some sort, which may also be very common in Scotland. And of course, there's a tough road ahead for our heroes. And while that tough road for the resistance is key, unfortunately, it wasn't David Mackenzie who brought the most life when it came to his version of the story. It was very distressing. It was very downtrodden. It beat you over the head with hopelessness, almost incessantly so. I mean, no matter where these fighters went, they were hunted. I may have lost my brother today, but there's one thing I'll never lose, and that's my sense of English. Run, get out of here! And if you still don't think that Outlaw King is the bleaker version of the same story, just check out their William Wallace compared to Braveheart. Okay, that's still Mel Gibson, but the irony being that's exactly what that guy looked like in the movie. There was some joy, there was some humor, and some life in this film, don't get me wrong, but I found that it didn't really break up the incessant hopelessness enough. It was grouped together, almost bookending the story. And you know what, Netflix, when people think of your movies, they already think of hopelessness. The one absolute ray of sunshine in this film is the incandescent Florence Pugh, who plays Elizabeth, who's Robert the Bruce's wife. She absolutely stole this film, and she's an actress who's really come on strongly in the past 2 years. And this is one of the best key differences between the two films. While I absolutely adored Angus McFadden in Braveheart, he was arguably my favorite character when he played Robert the Bruce. He really just reacted to other characters. But in this version, Pugh and Pine give each other a lot to work with, and I found that that really livened up this version of Robert the Bruce. Pugh not only gave Pine a lot to work with because of her amazing acting, but she pushed the movie forward. She pushed the story forward. She motivated Robert the Bruce and gave me somebody to really root for more than the title character. And when you steal the show like that, that makes you for the win. Unfortunately, Pugh really wasn't indicative of the rest of the cast, which is why she stood out. Pine was good enough. Aaron Taylor-Johnson was good enough as an insane Scot. I actually also liked Game of Thrones' Stephen Delane in his version of King Edward. It was much more subdued, much more subtle, much more sarcastic. The issues he had with his son in England was more akin to a disgruntled landlord than it was a homicidal tyrant. Well, at least he didn't burn his kid at the stake. Come on, nerds, the references coming too fast for you? Maybe he should have, because Prince Edward, played by Billy Howell, was very different than the Braveheart version, which is good. It's nice to separate yourself and try new things, but he was so comedically over the top sometimes that he just didn't fit within the film. And while, of course, he's the antagonist of the piece, he really made himself the antagonist of the audience. Like early Bobcat Goldthwait could have taught this guy a thing or two about subtlety. He just didn't fit. Perhaps he was going for annoying more than menacing. Perhaps that's what Prince Edward was actually like. I don't know, but it really made me ask, are you for real? Like I said at the beginning, it is arguably the greatest Netflix film I have ever seen. However, that definitely doesn't make it the greatest film I've ever seen. It's not even the greatest David Mackenzie film I've seen, but you know what? You get to watch it on Netflix. I had to drive to TIFF, spend money to go see it, but you don't. And for that price, it's an earn it. But there's another Robert the Bruce story with Angus McFadden from Braveheart coming out next year, and I really think it might be better. I'll drink to that. English horses, get out of here! Poll question, who's your favorite cinematic folk hero? As always, leave your answers in the comments section below. But until next time, school's out. Hey Real students, thanks for watching. If you want to subscribe to Real School, click that round Real School logo right beside me. Also click that damn notification bell so you're aware of all of Real School's new content. You can follow me on Twitter, and of course, if you get anything out of Real School, you can always give a little back. Just click the link in the description below or the button down there, and you can become part of my Patreon team.